Everyone still looks uncomfortable.
Perhaps they'll all remember that old saying, power corrupts.
Hello and welcome to Second Officer Slog. I'm your host M. With me is regular co-host Jackson Tyler. Say hello.
Hello. Hello.
We're here to talk about Discovery. Jackson, have you watched any Star Trek since then?
No.
Last Discovery, last book, whatever. Did you Star Trek anything?
I think this has been all of the Star Trek I've done. Like, I don't know. I tried to play the Star Trek Stellaris mod. That's as far as we go. The soundtrack was pretty good.
I played about an hour of that. That seems pretty good. I'm a little too busy to dig into it now, but I intend to. It's cool. If you just go to Stellaris, if you own Stellaris, which is a video game, you know, maybe people here don't play video games. If you go to the Steam Workshop, if you sort by most popular mods, like one of the most popular mods, if not the most popular, is a Star Trek mod that changes everything, story and graphics and everything into Star Trek. So that's what we're talking about. Maybe we'll talk about it more when we actually play it.
Yep, if I ever sit down and really try to get into it, I will let you know. But instead I played FTL, which is actually also Star Trek, but whatever.
Yeah.
No, I haven't watched anything. I'm due to watch some more soon, but not, I haven't yet. It's been a busy time.
I watched Bar Association, which is maybe one of the best episodes of DS9 in this rewatch.
Yeah, no, you rewatching DS9 and realizing the things you appreciate about that show have changed so much has been really cool.
Yes. I mean, it is a direct output of the books we've been reading, like recentering those books around the characters they do. Sorry, my partner's in the room and I cannot talk about the things about those books that I would like to talk about.
Yes.
But based on who that's centered, my appreciation for DS9 during this rewatch is much higher because my investment in those storylines goes past the point where that show stops, and that's really cool.
Yeah, no, thinking of DS9, through reading the books, we are able to think of DS9 as not just a show that exists, but a playground to play in terms of just an area of the Star Trek universe that we're going to be spending more time in. So that makes certain episodes much more interesting.
Yep. Also, Bar Associations is great, especially in this era. This is like an entire episode where the A plot is about the forming, the busting, and the success of a union, and that show would never get made today.
No. Can you even imagine? Elon Musk.
Yeah. God. Look. That bastard's from the Mirror Universe. So, of course he's talking about Elon Musk. Let's talk about Discovery.
Does that... Hang on. Let's talk about Mirror Elon Musk. Let's not.
So, this is a broader question, but where did the Mirror Universe deviate? Because in my mind, it deviates at first contact, but the implication of this episode is that it deviated thousands of years ago.
Well, the implication of first contact, or of that... So, okay. There is a scene at the beginning of the Enterprise Mirror Universe episode, which is hilarious. It is the opening scene of the episode, but it's the closing scene of First Contact, where the Vulcan ship comes down, and oh shit, what's his name? Fuck, what I forgot.
Zephyr Cochrane.
I got it. Is standing there, and
they built a statue of him. Jordy went to Zephyr Cochrane High School, Jackson.
Yes, I know. He's got to take a leak.
Bozeman, Montana.
Vulcan comes out, does the hand signature, where Zephyr Cochrane would usually pull out his hand and try to do it back and fuck it up, and haha, everyone talks to each other. Instead, he pulls out a gun and shoots him in the face, and everyone ransacks the ship. That's how it established the Mirror Universe begins there as a hilarious deviation point.
So part of the reason that's interesting to me, and that I've always assumed that's where the Mirror Universe happens, is I didn't actually get to whether or not this is true or not, but in Shatnerverse book 4, I don't think I ever read book 5. They imply that that's probably where the Mirror Universe split is during the First Contact stuff.
Okay.
And they had a big long explanation that was clearly going to be in the next book that I never bothered to read. So,
well, we'll get there in 3 years.
Yes,
probably less.
Yes.
But at some point,
because one of the plot points of that book is that the giant a terraformed lake on the moon in our universe is named after Lily. I don't remember her last name, but it's her last name. It's Evan Cochran's assistant. And in the mirror universe, that same lake is named Lake Riker. The implication being maybe that like Riker stayed behind or something.
Wait. We can't get to talking about the
really
impossible
can't.
lore ramifications
We really
of the fourth
can't. But this is just a thing that I've always wondered about since I was a child, so we're talking about it now. But
you're telling me there's a Shadowverse book we're going to read at some point wherein the events of First Contact still happened in the Mirror Universe?
yes.
Oh my god, that's so stupid. Okay. Anyway, I'm fairly sure that even in that Enterprise episode, there's like a line saying that like the attack was planned. So maybe like most of the universe, like that is the deviant point in the universe.
Yes.
But the history of Earth could have been different, and like
yes, but like they're both like weird causal loops, right? Like
yes.
They only exist because the two universes existed in the present, and thus they deviated in the past.
And not to get ahead of ourselves, but this episode really leans into the Mirror Universe as being more than just another universe with coincidentally the same people. Like this leans into like, oh, maybe these characters are fated to like do these things over and over again in different forms.
Anyway, we should actually introduce the episode. We are talking about Vaulting Ambition, which is Discovery Season 1, Episode 12. This aired 21st of January 2018. That was yesterday as of recording. It was written by Jordan Nardino and directed by Hanel M. Culpepper. Jackson, what is happening to the Discovery?
Oh, right. Where do we begin? So much happened this episode that I can't really remember.
So much happened in 36 minutes.
This is one of the shortest episodes of the season. I know the episode length vary because like last week's was 49, which was very, very fun for me. I do like it when the episode's long. But this week we begin with Lorca and Burnham are heading to the Imperial Palace ship because Emperor Georgiou has shown up and been like, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing? Come to me. You didn't kill the rebels. You've all messed up. What's going on here?" So she brings them to them, and then it's all about Georgiou and Burnham meeting. There are three main plots to this episode. There's the stuff on the palace with Burnham and Georgiou and like minorly Lorca in the background. There's the stuff on Discovery where Tyler is in a real bad way and they need to like help him, and like what evolves from that. And then there's the stuff with the meeting of the Stametsers in the mycelial network. So which ones do we want to do first? Because there's three entirely separate plot lines in this episode.
I think we should start with Vok Ash Tyler.
Vok Ash Tyler, right. So as this plotline begins, they are trying to deal with Ash Tyler. Ash Tyler is like clearly in a bad way. He's like yelling in Klingon, but then occasionally there are moments where like it's clear he clearly switches to being Ash again. And like the two personalities just in his head warring, and he's basically having a breakdown as his brain is falling apart. And he's like looking at Saru, asking him to help, but they can't help him. They don't know how to help him. They can barely restrain him. So Saru starts trying to ask L'Rell for help. He goes to L'Rell and says, "Hey, whatever is happening to both of them. I don't know what the hell you did, but if you can help them, that would be great." And so L'Rell explains, "No, we like merged. We took his body and we put Vok's mind in it, and they are both there together now, and it cannot be undone. And any suffering he is enduring, he did voluntarily. He sacrificed this." And you're like a loser for coming to ask me. You clearly don't understand war. And so he's like, "Okay, well, I'll go away, go deal with that." Tries to deal with the Ash stuff himself. Cannot with the help of the medical team. So then asks L'Rell again. And it's like, "Hey, this is really bad. Look at this photo. Look, he is destroying himself. This is bad. We cannot contain him. He's going to die. And you are refusing to help." And then she's like, "No, you still don't understand, do you? I will not do this. I can't. You can't make me do this. You have no leverage on me, and you don't understand." And he's like, "We're in the mirror universe, so I don't know what you think matters, but the war's not here. Everything's kind of going on as it like in that universe, and we're like lost. This war has no meaning anymore." And she's like, "No, fuck you." So then, in the coldest thing Saru has done all season, he's like, "Very well, energize," and just beams Ash Tyler into the cell with her. and she completely changes and like runs to his side, and like it's like, oh no, clearly he is actually in pain, and being confronted with this person that she loves and the pain that he's in really fucks her up. So she agrees to do some surgery, which he says is like, oh, only my hand can fix this. And so she's like basically in the medical bay with everyone with their phasers trained on her as she's performing brain surgery on Ash/Vok. And as she's doing this, she's like adjusting the brain waves, and she's like looking around, and she does something, and something changes in the brain waves, and she like screams as like he becomes like at peace again. What this actually means is not made clear. The implication is that Vok has been like removed in order to save Ash Tyler. I don't actually know if that's what happens. We will see. But she definitely does a big like death scream, like, "Oh, Vok's gone."
Yes.
Even though that is not said explicitly.
So, yeah, because what happens is he's saying a prayer in Klingon, and then as she does it, it like devolves into English by the end.
Yes.
Like as he
yes.
like loses that ability to do that, maybe. So we start with this one because this is so you had kind of a down opinion on this episode, right?
I came away
look,
on it.
just say yes and we can continue because you did.
Yes.
And I was kind of flat on last episode, but the thing that I like looking at people's reactions is this is the part of the series where like we have 3 episodes left and all of the possibility space of what new Star Trek could be, because this was always going to be a season written to be maybe the only season, because who knew if they were going to get more, is like rapidly collapsing down as we come to whatever the ending of the story is going to be, because the season has to have an actual ending, because it might have been the last Star Trek for another 10 years for all anyone knows.
Yes.
And so that leaves a certain amount of like watching stuff being taken off the table when it wouldn't be if it was season 1 of a 7-season show otherwise. Mm-hmm. And this is a big part of that, and we'll get to the other part when we talk about Lorca and stuff probably. This is the one that makes me the saddest, because I really like the idea of Vok and Tyler, and maybe what she did is actually merge the two in a way that they are just one person now, and they're just gonna have, like, Ash Tyler's just gonna have to live with that, or Vok, or whatever he ends up calling himself by the end of it, because she would still see that as like a death of this character, right?
Yeah. So like I think there are 2 possibilities for how this has gone. Like, the way that scene is shot is kind of unclear. I have to go back and watch it again. But like, she is very clearly like doing something to his head, and like she could be, for all I know, like resuppressing Vok to awaken again later.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's possible. I'm willing to take it at the word, at her, like the word of the show's like narrative, that is not what's happening.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough time for that in this season.
But also, like, she has all these flashes of like the time she and Vok spend together, and then she does the death scream. I just don't think you do all that in this show with that being her plan.
Yeah. But I also like, I'm with you in that if it's just Ash's, like if we just removed this problem, and Ash is Ash again.
Yes.
Like, obviously he's still going to have the trauma from all this being fucked up. Like, he's still going to be Ash and be like, precious boy, trauma boy, forever. But it is going to be weird to have that, like, depth lost if they just have, like, removed Vok entirely. That seems a bit strange. But again, this, like, that's where the plotline ends. We don't actually know where this is going. And this episode, probably more than most, is like 3 plot lines of things just happening that don't actually get any closure or emotional payoff, even in, like, the episodic sense. It's like things that will be picked up next week. We are in the final stretch.
Yep. The thing here that's interesting to me is what role L'Rell might be playing in the future if we are getting rid of Vok as like the lead Klingon of this show, because it's always been Vok, Cole, and L'Rell as like the 3 hero Klingons of the show, and yes. Vok is gone. L'Rell or Cole is dead. I mean, I guess there was Takova, but he ate it in the pilot, so it doesn't really matter. But like, those are like the hero Klingons. They're all gone now, and of all of the Klingons that have existed with this like new makeup, that, you know, take it or leave it, we can talk about that when we wrap up the season, I guess. She's the one that is the most like the actress. You can see the actress through the makeup. It's not a lot of face prosthetics. Like, if they wanted to put her on the ship in some capacity, just in the prison forever, it makes sense that she's the one they chose, because the makeup is good enough to do that. Probably not super hard to wear, and she's the one who acts best through it. I mean, we've said like I think it was like season or episode 3 that I was like, man, Laurel's really good at acting through the makeup.
Yeah, and it's a much lighter makeup job because like Vok is not only a makeup job, but it's also done to
when
hide...
they cut to Vok, it like almost reads as like a mask. It's so heavy because like there's like the face piece is like the nose, but also like lips and brows. They're all different. Like he's just wearing a Halloween mask at that point.
Yeah, because they have to pretend it's not him.
Yep.
Whereas Laurel is just a character, and I think like if Laurel sticks around, that's going to be really interesting.
Yes.
I would like for her to.
Well, yeah.
We'll
also, like when Saru comes to tell her about Ash Tyler's problems, she's like facing away from the force field, like meditating. Like Laurel's cool. I would like her to stick around because she's awesome. Also,
yeah. No, she like is like looking at the wall to spite the Federation. Like, I'm not going to look at you. What do you want from me? I'm just going to sit here in my cell and know that I'm like secretly winning.
Yeah.
And then Saru's like, no, you're not. That's not how any of this works. None of us are winning. This sucks.
Yeah. So that's kind of that story. What would you like to do next? Do you like
I
to
want
save
to do Lorca next?
Okay, all right.
I think because
that's not the order I would have chosen, but all right.
But the other stuff is stuff I really love, so I want to talk about that last.
Okay. Do you want me to summarize this one?
Yes.
So we are on the Imperial Palace ship, the Charon, which is a giant ship built around like a small star. It's very strange as to what it is and how it works. But that's what it is. And Lorca and Burnham are taken before Emperor Georgiou, who now has like 6 more names tacked onto her name. And they're
like
in
Regia and Dora.
Yes. Yes, because she not only rules the Terran Empire, but she is the de facto leader of all of the planets that they have consumed in their expansions. She's like ruler of Kronos, Regia, Andoria, or whatever, and all like it's ridiculous. And she is ridiculous to boot. She walks around with like a metal fan and a sword. It's a little on the nose, but she plays
So is
it
the Mirror
really well.
Universe.
Yeah, no, I guess so is the Mirror Universe. Anyway, she starts interrogating Burnham, basically like, why are you back? I can't believe you're back. I can't believe you're back with him. And Burnham tries very hard to like explain the situation in her, like, I'm going to pretend to be Mirror Michael Burnham and be evil, but I'm actually really bad at this sort of way. Up until and Georgiou's like, oh, we'll bring you back. It'll be great. We need to speak in private. And then she's like, pick one. She points to a bunch of Kelpians, and Burnham's like, oh, that one, I guess. And one of them's let off, and then there cuts them eating dinner. And it turns out they're eating the Kelpians because Brian Fuller wrote this show at some point.
Yeah, he sure did.
You know,
his legacy lives on in. She points to Saru.
It's not. No,
is that not Saru?
None of them are the ones from the ship. They're just Kelpians.
Okay. For some reason, I thought that the whole point of that scene, like, I couldn't tell because it happened so quickly.
No. They're just Kelpians.
All right.
Because all Kelpians look the same, which I understand, problematic. But here's where we are. Anyway,
look, it's a makeup job.
Georgiou is like, oh, you're back. Let me give you one of the ganglia. It's the best part. And Burnham looks like she's about to throw up everywhere, but does not. She eats the thing and is fine and is like trying to hold it all together. And it's revealed that Georgiou was the person who raised Burnham in this universe, and she's been like the Emperor's daughter. And she was given command of the Shenzhou to go out and explore the galaxy and rule the Empire. And now that she's back, Georgiou doesn't know what to do about it, and because she's acting really weird, not answering things correctly. And Burnham fails to be Mirror Universe just enough for Georgiou to get suspicious, and he pulls a knife on her. And at knife point, Burnham immediately reverts to Starfleet training and is like, well, let me explain. I'm from the Prime Universe. We are trying to find a way home. It's me and Lorca. We're here. We need to get out. Maybe you could help us? You want to get us out of this universe too? Because you probably don't want us here as much as we don't want to be here. And it works enough to get Georgiou to listen. But also Burnham happens to mention, oh yeah, we got here through a spore drive. And she clearly lights up about this because a spore drive sounds really useful. Like a thing you'd want to have if you run an evil empire.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, she's like, I will help you get back to your universe if you give me the schematics for the drive. And Burnham's like, yeah, sure, whatever. Prime Directive clearly doesn't apply here.
Which is kind of fucked up. Just like, yeah, I guess I'll give you the ability to subjugate you even harder than before. Like, whatever. This isn't my universe.
I mean, look, we know that the spore drive does not actually change this universe, and the Terran Empire is doomed anyway. That. Sure, she doesn't know that, but we know that, and some things just have to be hand waved away when you're in a 37-minute episode,
Literally
12 of 15.
Last week, she was like, like, look, I can't just go ahead doing anything, even because this is another universe. Like, that was the central.
She
like,
just
thrust
ate a
of the
Kelpian,
dilemma.
Jackson.
This mirror universe stuff is a bit vague.
Yes, it is. Anyway, when she's explaining everything to Georgiou, in the meantime, what's his name? Lorca is in the what's it called? The agonizer, right? And she, at the beginning of the episode, she had like given him like a hypo spray that was supposed to dull his senses so he wouldn't be as injured by the agonizer. And so you're just waiting for him to get like kicked out of the agonizer. And as he's in there, this guy comes up and he's like, "Oh, Gabriel Lorca, it's amazing to see you back alive." And he clearly has business. He's like, "Tell me about my sister." And it's like, oh, Gabriel Lorca doesn't know what his sister, because he's not from this universe, even though, come on, he's clearly from this universe. And they play this as like a beat in between the Georgiou and Burnham stuff for about 10 minutes.
They sure do.
Yes. And then while that's happening and Burnham is explaining the plan to Georgiou and getting Georgiou on board, because Georgiou knows, obviously, because of the Defiant coming over, knows everything about the Prime Universe. She's like, the United Federation of Planets. Ideas like freedom and cooperation, all of these things are evil, and I don't believe in them. She explains the situation, and then so she's talking about getting Burnham back home, and it's like, I can't believe you'd work with Gabriel Lorca. Our Gabriel Lorca is such an evil manipulator. And then starts explaining like the ways in which Gabriel Lorca was evil, in that he was the Emperor's like right-hand man and had helped basically like raise Michael Burnham in the Mirror Universe, and then had like fallen in love with her. It's not, I feel like it's not clear whether or not they were together or whether or not he was just like a creep at her.
The implication in this episode, and it is said explicitly that he groomed her. That, like,
yes,
he raised her in order to
But that doesn't necessarily mean anything in the Mirror Universe where they all talk ridiculous like that.
Sure, but it is played as a big reveal, and it is like basically trying to cast their relationship in a new light, where she realizes that, oh, he has always had these like hidden intentions with me, and is like seeking to use me for his own ends. It is not clear how much that is true. So this is the stuff that I kind of felt kind of.
So we're not done with this. We're not done with the summary yet. Okay,
yeah, finish the summary, and then
she's explaining how Mirror Gabriel Lorca acts and the things he has said about Michael Burnham. And as it happens, it just so happens to be exact dialogue pulls from earlier in the season, things that Michael Burnham has seen Gabriel Lorca say, and she's flashing to all these things that he said that align exactly with Georgiou's telling her. And then she opens the big window to her like weird sun drive that the palace is wrapped around, and she like flinches, and Burnham is like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "The one difference between our universes, the only genetic deviance in thousands of years, is that everyone in the Mirror Universe is sensitive to light." And then there's the flash of every time Gabriel Lorca has been like, "Oh, I need to inject my eyeballs because I'm sensitive to light because of the brand blowing up." And thus it's revealed Gabriel Lorca is actually from the Mirror Universe. Shock of all shocks. He gets out of the agonizer and beats that guy up, kills him, whatever. And then it's implied, oh, he's like the real evil that they're going to have to stop next episode, even though, come on, that's not... We all knew Gabriel Lorca was a bad man. He's been a bad man since episode 3. He will continue to be a bad man. That doesn't mean he's not going to end up Captain of Discovery by the end of the season.
So, yes, a lot of the reaction to this episode has been centered around this twist and like how people feel about it. A lot of the ways I feel weird about it are nowhere near as much as like some of the reaction. I feel weird about it because I think calling Lorca a villain and leaning into like, oh, he's like a grooming creep who is like super evil and he's gonna like come and get us, it just feels like such an easy way out for like.
But also the only person who says that is Philippa Georgiou, the Emperor of the Terran Empire.
Yes, exactly. So like my problem is less that he's from the Mirror Universe and has done all these things, because I actually think there are like really interesting places they can go with what is on the table here. It is more that like, oh, they've done these things and I feel weird, but it's more just that's the end of an episode of television in like, you know, in 2018, and they have to have this big twist, and they've done these big moments before, and they always walk them back to the more considered, okay, what's actually going on after the cliffhanger, which again, not the greatest structural thing. I am not a big fan of modern television either for this reason, but that's what we got.
Yep.
And we should all accept that that's what we're working with. I don't think it's bad that he's from the Mirror Universe. I think there is a read on his relationship, which is where I expect it to go, of like, oh, I actually, because I was in an evil land, really fucked up and was creepy in this relationship with someone I like cared about. I'm gonna bring her to my side and make her actually like she's actually cool. Because he's not actually been that creepy towards her in the real universe. He's not.
Yeah, no, like he's not any creepier towards her than he is everyone else that he uses for his own ends.
He's in fact much creepier towards everyone else.
I don't know. There's that time like mid season where he like convinces her, like she's like, I apologize. I'm glad I'm on your ship. I'm glad I served with you. And like the weird speech he gives her, like that stuff is pretty manipulative in exactly the same way he was towards like Stamets and Cornwell and stuff.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. But he's been manipulative throughout.
Yes, no, that's just who he is.
But I also think that like the way he like they could totally be like, oh, the way he has been with Prime Burnham is like a reflection of his way with Mira Burnham, and has been trying to like, because we had this guess early on that like he's not evil necessarily. He might just be like from the evil universe and just trying to be good because he wants to be. But that's like you can't do that overnight.
I mean,
that direction's
yeah, like
still on the table.
By DS9, the humans are not evil in the Mirror Universe. Like they are the downtrodden, oppressed peoples that you're supposed to like empathize with. Even though like 200 years earlier they're part of the Terran Empire. That's like the whole point of the Mirror Universe is like the mirror is a distortion that is messed up. Not necessarily everyone is evil now. It's been portrayed that way because everyone's riffing on Mirror Mirror, but that doesn't have to be the way it goes.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I definitely came out of the episode kind of down, but that's, like I say, more of a function of the way television is designed. I've been reading reactions to this episode. Everyone needs to just take a step back. So
my reaction, not even about the villain, is that what will happen is there will be a confrontation, but they need to get off the ship and back to the universe anyway. Lorca's probably the only person who actually helped make that happen, and they will work together and it'll be uneasy. But then in season 2, you have him commanding a ship and she knows all about him. And he's got this weird thing where like he sees her as like a daughter that he raised, and she like Lorca's the one person that Burnham looks up to that wasn't actually a surrogate parent for her, because it was Georgia who was like her surrogate mother when she got off Vulcan, and there's Sarek who was literally her adopted father, and that's all she's had is like adults that she looks up to as like parental figures. And here's Lorca who will like be the straight shooter with her, and I understand why she would like appreciate that after all of these parental figures. And that baggage being offloaded into him being the one who sees that, I think is like a dynamic you don't actually see much of in these types of shows.
Oh no,
and I would actually really like that to be what like the baggage of season 2 is.
I hadn't considered, just because it wasn't what I was thinking about, but that like when this wraps up, Burnham will be the only one who knows this.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally
because there's no reason they have to like. She's already not telling Saru a lot of things about her adventures.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the possibility space is still really interesting. I think you just have to ignore the overplayed direction of the last scenes of like, oh, he kicked that guy in the face. Like
you always that's just television. You always have to ignore that sort of thing. Unless someone is actually murdered in those last 3 minutes, they don't matter. It's the end of a comic book. That's what it is. This is serialized television.
Like they matter, but not in the not in the emotional state is not necessarily the textual events.
You got to bring it back down every time.
There are also like there's been other things I've been considering that fall into the next plot line that I don't know where it's going. There's still a lot of like questions to answer, which are now more interesting. That all the obvious questions have all been answered with a yes. Yes.
So Jackson, please tell us about the third storyline of this episode.
So the third storyline of this episode is Paul Stamets trapped in the mycelium network. Tilly is monitoring him in the spore chamber, going, "Oh, there's something is happening in his brain, and we just need to let it happen." And Saru's like, "I can see that, but he's in a coma." Like, if he doesn't just wake up all of a sudden, then I don't know what. There's nothing we can do. And we cut to inside the mycelial network, and he runs into Mira Stamets, and there's a hilarious scene where he's like, am I dead? Are you here to lead me to God?"
And Mira Stamets is like, "Yes, God does exist, and you've made her very angry, Paul." And then he's like, "What, really?" And he's like, "No, what? If you are dead, you're not dead. And if there is a God, we don't know, because we're stuck here in the mycelial network. Let me show you around."
Yeah, because like eventually he finds out that like, oh wait, you're just fucking with me, but he still thinks he's dead.
Yeah.
So there's wait, hang on. So is this instead the afterlife? And he has to be like, "No, you're in the spores. Come on, hurry up with this. Get to it, Paul. I'm from another universe." and we've got to deal with whatever's going on. So they're both trapped in a mycelial
Yes, because
network.
Mir Stamets has also been experimenting with the spore drive, but in a much different way than Prime Universe was.
Yes, I think he says at this point that he is working on the Emperor's ship, and just experimenting with the mycelial network, and that is all he says. Can't possibly have any nefarious intentions. So they go to the Discovery as the thing happens that always happens, where so some of you heard this before, but the abstract non-space just becomes the primary standing sets of the show.
I don't know if you looked at Trek Core, but all of the environments had USS Stamets plaques replaced with Discovery plaques.
Yes!
Yes. They did the work.
I fucking love the show.
You know.
Wow. Oh, that's so good.
Yep.
So they're working through, like, we need to get to engineering. If you like, all of the facilities of the ship will still work as it will in your mind. We need to like use your brain and figure out how we can get out of the spore network. And as they are walking through the ship, they suddenly like see something behind them. They're getting lost because it's not a real place. So it's easy to get lost in. And Mira Stamets is like, "Oh, don't get lost. If you get lost, it's really bad for you." And they see this like weird darkness coming at them. Just like
It's like a
existential
red
darkness.
fungus creep.
Yeah. And there's like something is wrong inside the network, so we have to hurry up. We can't get lost because if we get caught in it, it'll like really mess you up. And he reveals that he's like it's infected him as well, and before long, it's going to infect the whole network. It's going to infect, which means it's going to infect all of life across all of the universe. It is like an existential threat that isn't really like bigged up. It's just stated, but it is an existential threat of the kind that we just don't get in Star Trek, which it makes me very excited. It's some real friends of the table shit.
Yes.
What if the like matrix of the universe was like infected?
Well, I mean, let me tell you a story about the time that it was revealed that like warp speed actually damaged the fabric of space-time, and then nobody did anything about it.
I fucking hate that this clean warp drive alternative also infects the fabric of space-time. I guess that's not actually what happened.
No.
Anyway, they're trying to figure out what's going on, but while they're into engineering, he sees, who could he see but Hugh Culber, who is in the network, and he chases him around, and Mira Stamets is like, "No, this is how you get lost, don't do it." And he's running around after him, and eventually leads to his quarters, and finds Hugh, and the door shuts on him, and he is locked in his quarters.
Before we talk about this scene, it's worth pointing out that Mira Stamets asks who Hugh is.
Yes, it's like, who's Hugh?
Because they have said explicitly, like, they had thought maybe they were going to do a Mira Culber, but then decided that they didn't want to do that because he would have just been like, oh, like an evil Nazi doctor, and that's not fun or interesting to do with the character who's dying in the Prime Universe. Mm-hmm. But it led me to ask you the question today over Slack: is Mirror Universe Paul Stamets gay?
Which I said, probably, why wouldn't he be? And then remembered that DS9 exists.
Yes, no, DS9 proves that sexuality can change over the universes.
And
because Kira is like
ways.
the straightest woman on Earth in the Prime Universe.
Oh, that's not true.
Jackson, every man she is with is the most bland, vanilla white bread man that's ever existed.
Yeah, but
she is like every time Dax tries to take her to Holosuite to like have some fun, she is a stick in the mud about it. Keanu Reeves is the straightest woman in space.
I was about to say you didn't tell me that she never like not once hooked up with Dax, but I guess that gives probably an answer. And Dax is just annoyed every time. This incredibly straight woman.
Yes.
I don't know. There are other candidates on DS9 for this title, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe I like the headcanon though.
Yes, the headcanon is that Mirror Paul Stamets is totally hetero, and he's the fucking worst because of it, obviously. Yeah. Anyway, back to the quarters.
Back to the quarters, and he sees Hugh, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing in the network? What's going on?" And he's like, I'm dead. I died. I was killed." And then Stamets remembers that, like, "Oh, wait, I saw that. And then I was, like, holding your body as you... Oh, no. Oh, shit, you're dead." Which, the thing I liked about this is that I expected this to be, like, a representation of Culber or something. But the way this is played is this is actually Culber, but not in the real world. Like, this is... It is like they say that this isn't an afterlife and this is just a network, but they play this as him like meeting Culber.
I mean, to be fair, Tilly last time said that the mycelial network is like the building blocks of life and death in the universe.
Mm-hmm. Which is why we were all predicting that he would use the power of love to bring Culber back. But instead of that, you get this like really beautiful scene where he's like, okay, just tell me about your day, as they like go through their favorite part of their life and just this like domestic relationship that they have. And he's like, oh, play that aria, the one that he loves but I fucking hate. And it's just like it was very emotional for me. And I found like one of the big complaints with the way that this plotline has gone so far is not only that Culber died, but that his death was like played for shock value. And this brings that back, and you get a very sweet scene where they like talk about this, and he's like, I guess you're dead. What does that mean? Like, you're not, I can't bring you back. This is really messed up and I'm not okay with it. And Culber's like, well, you're going to have to be. You're still you. You can't stop being you. And they just sit in this room, and he explains that, that the, like, whatever's wrong with the network, the other Stamets did it. And you have to, you're the
he
one.
specifically says he was misusing the mycelial network for his own ends, which sounds really fucking nefarious given the potential space of that.
Yes. And he's like, you can't, like, because there's a moment where he's like, oh, what if I just stayed here with you? Because I don't want to go back to the universe without you. And Culber gives him this speech of like, no, like, this is what's going on, and you are the only person who has anywhere like near the knowledge to begin trying to help, and you have to do this. And it's, yeah, and then he has to like leave him, and it's really sad. And there's going to be a lot of discourse about this scene, this plot line, and I do not begrudge anyone who is annoyed about the way this has gone in like the first 10 episodes of a season, or first 15 episodes of a season, killing off one of the characters in Star Trek's first gay relationship. But this scene's like really good to me and was very emotional. I was very sad.
I also thought this was an incredible scene, one of the best of this show to date.
Oh, easily. Like,
yes.
I made a post this morning on Twitter being like, I acknowledge politically the like the disappointingness of the trope where, you know, gays are usually like only gay in tragic circumstances, but also I eat that up. It's the best. Yes.
But also between like this scene, the dancing scene with him and Burnham, and him telling Hilly, it is fucking cool. Like, Paul Stamets is actually the hero we deserve in Star Trek. He's so good.
Paul Stamets so much.
Oh, and as this season like starts to narrow that space, like, we originally were like, oh, Paul Stamets is clearly going to like fuse the mushrooms and save the network. I think it's much more likely he's going to use science to save the network and then never touch it again. And I'm really excited that we are going to get a Paul Stamets that can like live this life and grieve this relationship and have these interactions and still be that amazing character. Like, Anthony Rapp is so good in this show, and every scene he's in, he is wonderful, and I love it a lot. Even if like I get people like being upset at this direction being taken in the aspect of all media, but this story specifically as a thing that is being told is being incredibly well told, and I'm willing to see it out and enjoy it in the moment.
It's it's big and tragic and like in the vein of a lot of disappointing like trends, but take it on its own. I'm like really like this moving story about this couple and about this tragedy, and I think it's being told like as respectfully as it could be, like in the context of what they're doing. Like, now my prediction has shifted to, oh, he's gonna like have to fix it with science and never go there again, even though Culber, like, he could go back in and see Culber anytime he wanted, is like the way this episode ends, but you can't do that. So and it's sad. It's really sad.
So now that Culber's like, you have to go and save the network, he's like, I'm stuck. I'm in a coma. Like, what do I do? He's like, just open your eyes. And he opens his eyes and sits up in the medical bed and then walks out of sick bay. But it just so happens that he's walking out of sickbay on the Charon, the Imperial Palace ship, because he's in the wrong Stamets' body. And back on the Discovery, Mirror Paul Stamets wakes up in engineering in the real Paul Stamets' body. And Tilly's like, oh, you're awake. We have a lot to tell you. He's like, yes, I know about Hugh. I need to see the mushrooms. And he walks into the mushroom bay, and all of the fungus is dying because of the spread of the mycelial disease or whatever it is.
It's gone very badly for everyone. Apparently this wasn't clear that they switched bodies. They never...
Look, I don't know. I was just looking at people's reactions on Twitter. People on Twitter are stupid. Like, that could have just been someone who didn't know what the hell they were talking about.
Okay, he opens his eyes, and then he opens his eyes on the bridge, and it pulls out in a very dramatic, obvious way. He is in the wrong body, so this is going to go poorly.
If it wasn't obvious from the fact that his uniform is different, they even pan over to a shot of a placard that's like Imperial ship.
I could see watching that and thinking, wait, why is the other Stamets woken up?
Oh, I hate it.
Yeah, I know.
The part where we're like, oh, like, don't worry, it's Star Trek, it's not that deep, like they're not playing third-dimensional chess. But then I realized that even the like very obvious plotting is like people are just bouncing off of, because no one does a podcast where they have to read the show as they watch it.
It's strange.
I don't watch new television. I don't know. Are people just dumb, or is TV just like mostly bad?
Both can be true.
You watch Breaking Bad. Tell me, Jackson, is TV bad?
Oh, yes. Yes, it is. Oh, don't remind me. It's like a Shakespeare play.
Yeah, no, 5 acts.
Yeah.
Apparently, season 5 of Breaking Bad is just in totally the denouement, which is surprising to me.
Oh, that was a good... anyway, we're just subtweeting someone's article. But that's where the episode ends. All the stuff in the Mycelial Network was like fantastic. I love all the Stamets stuff. The way this has gone has made Stamets like into one of my favorite Star Trek characters.
Yes, 100%.
I'm so excited for where this goes.
Yeah.
My sad special boy with mushrooms.
Yeah. He will soon no longer be special, probably.
Yep. The like possibility that it raises and the question that it raises is like the connection between this plot and the Lorca plot. Mm-hmm. Because he's on the same ship, and the spore experiments are happening on the same ship. When Georgiou asks Burnham, "Oh, the spore drive," and like she's not innocently doing that. She knows what a spore drive is. She knows like those experiments.
She knows what Mycelial Network is. They're the Mirror Universe might not have a spore drive, but they have something similar.
Oh, sure. But Burnham does not realize that she is entering into that like negotiation in a very untrustworthy way. Shocking that the Emperor of the Mirror Universe would ever do such a thing.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Who could foresee
sounds fake.
And so this like raises the question of, is Lorca's mission not to stop the war, but essentially to end an existential threat to all universes? I don't know. Like, probably not. That he might not know anything about the Stamets
Well,
stuff.
sure, but the thing with the thing with Stamets stuff implies that even if Lorca doesn't know that that's what he's doing, that might be what he's doing, because the Mycelial Network is like representative of a different type of faith in Star Trek. Like you have the Bajorans and the Prophets and the Wormhole Aliens, whatever. But now you have this other idea that is like more science-y, but it's just as kind of like New Age, the universe is bound together by life energy. It just happens to be in the form of mushrooms that go through the fabric of space-time.
I watched Haven. I know about love.
I have no idea what you're talking about now. You've just immediately leapt past my knowledge. So
no, it's an episode we covered on this show with Troy and...
Oh, that yes, right. God. Oh.
Yes.
We'll be back next week to talk about Discovery episode 13. Jackson, Plug Zone.
Plug Zone. Right. God, plugs. I'm at Headphones Off on Twitter. You can find the other podcasts we do at abnormalmapping.com. We have Abnormal Mapping, which is a Game Club podcast. Look for our podcast on Shadow of the Colossus in the next couple of weeks. It should be next Friday, right?
Yes. No, the 31st. It'll be on, I think that's Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday. It'll be the last day of the month.
Last day of the month. So look for that one that comes out. Please be very excited. Me and Molly are doing the Amory score every 2 weeks. We are going through... Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are going through the podcasts. We're the podcast. We're going through the comics and albums. It's been a long day. Of Coheed and Cambria. It sounds stupid, and it is, but it has led to a much better podcast than I could have imagined from the premise. So... You should come on down and enjoy A Good Apollo and Burning Star for Volume 1 from 3 Through the Eyes of Madness is the full title, so that's a good time. Novel Not New is a podcast about visual novels with Jen, Colin, and Em. Fireside Friends is at firesidefriends.net. That is Ryan, Alan, and Katie's show. Where else can you find us?
We are on Patreon, patreon.com/normmapping. If you subscribe for $1, you will get weekly The Great Gundam Project, which is a podcast me and Jackson do, where we watch 2 episodes of Gundam and talk about them. We are covering the last 2 episodes of Mobile Suit Gundam this Sunday, and then we'll be done, and we'll be moving on to Zeta Gundam. I'm very excited to be finished. We'll be on to Gundam that I've seen some of Zeta, I've not seen all of it. I'm excited to rewatch it and do our close reads on it, and it'll be good. Outside of that, you can find me at em_being on Twitter. Thanks everybody for your support. We'll be back next week with another Discovery episode. We'll be back early February to talk about William Shatner's The Return. Please be ready for some hot bullshit. Until then, see you out there.
Thank you.